It's time for wellness, folks. And today in our wellness segment, we are going to be exploring a topic that's really gaining more attention for its profound impact on our overall well-being, gut health. Did you know that your gut is often referred to as your second brain? It literally influences everything from digestion and nutrition absorption to your mood and even your immune function. But it's not just about avoiding stomach issues. It is to have good gut health is important for your whole body. And to help us understand why gut health matters, how we can take better care of our gut health, I'm delighted to be joined by Judith Johnson. Judith is a registered consulting dietitian with 35 years of experience in personalised integrated nutrition therapy, and she specialises in gut health. Judith, good morning.
Yes, hello, Sara-Jayne.
Hello.
Thank you for having me on your show.
No, an absolute pleasure. What's so special about the gut, Judith? Why do we need to worry about, outside of our gut instinct, why do we need to worry about our gut health?
Oh, my goodness. Well, the gut is actually the cornerstone to absolutely every single part of your body. I mean, it determines how you feel when you wake up in the morning. And what you eat has such a huge influence on actually the gut makeup. I mean, we can delve into all parts of it, but it's just the overall well-being of the person that makes us feel good. And it's actually completely dynamic, and it's influenced completely by what you eat. So if you eat good food, it starts to change its behavior and adapt to that. If you eat bad food, it also changes its behavior, but it changes it and creates incorrect bacteria, and they'll send incorrect signals to the rest of the body.
It's so interesting, isn't it? As ahead of us having this conversation, I was thinking about just kind of really breaking it down, almost as you have there, and talking about the fuel for our engine. And how we've moved so far away from, and not just our physical engine, our mental engine as well, and how it's lovely to have. We're so privileged to have such an array of wonderful things to taste and consume. However, what the human condition leads us to want a lot of things that aren't terribly good for us. And going back to the thing of everything in moderation, and we live in a world where actually we're not very good as human beings when it comes to moderation. So an awful lot of the time we are putting a lot of food into our body that isn't good for us to be eating compulsively or day in and day out. And to kind of bring it right back to the idea of, I wonder how many of us, when we are eating, are really thinking about fuel for my body rather than, I don't know how to put it, something nice for my soul, something to make me feel better, I deserve a chocolate, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's interesting that we can bring gut health right back down to sort of the basics of our human function, how it impacts our entire existence as people. How do we know if we've got good gut health or not, Judith?
Well, the first thing is to have a look at how you're actually feeling. I mean, the gut needs to operate like a well-oiled machine.
Right.
And it's programmed to do that if we just give it a chance. So you have to look at yourself and say, okay, am I eliminating every day? Is it without strain? Is there sort of no bloating? Do I not feel any sort of reflux? And the key thing is also we don't need strong odor, but it also can't be too loose, can't be too hard like pellets.
Yeah.
It needs to be sort of stop-serve ice cream. Then we know we're good to go.
Okay.
And actually when we get that, then we know, okay, we can start really focusing on the rest of the system, because it's the control center for so many things, particularly what people don't realize. It's actually the control center for things like your appetite regulation. And that's why it's so important in looking at keeping our body weight where we want it. It's absolutely to do with what's happening in our gut. And I don't think people really make that connection between what's happening in that single cell layer of our intestine and the connection with that, and basically our mood, clarity of focus, and just general mental health.
I agree.
I think people don't realize, it's a single cell. And so it's quite easy to sort of allow that cell to actually send the wrong signals, whereas your skin is actually about 7 layers. So you've got a little bit more protection there, but it's a very sensitive, dynamic system going on inside our bodies.
Two questions for you, Judith. One, if somebody is if they're listening in now and they're acknowledging, you know what, I don't feel great. I feel a bit sluggish, bloating. Maybe when it comes to eliminating things on sort of as fluid. I don't know if fluid is necessarily the right word in this context, but maybe things could be improved on that. How long, in terms of changing one's diet and eating more mindfully and looking after our gut health and getting all the right probiotics and all that, how long before we would actually feel a difference?
Well, it'll start within the first 4 days.
Really?
Absolutely. We've got these little Paneth cells that simply respond to what you're feeding it.
Yeah.
So you start the changes within that 4 days, and it starts to shift certain things in the microbiome. But remember, it's not just the microbiome. We're talking 3 systems we have to deal with. It's the little bugs, which are those chatty little things that actually communicate with the rest of the body. Then it's this layer of cell, and it's those cells that we use sort of biochemistry to try and fix up the action in those cells. And then it's the inside layer, which deals with the immune system. Now, those layers take a bit longer to all start to correct. And anything from, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sometimes it's much longer, depending on how fragile those actual single cells are.
Yeah.
Some people just have a minor discomfort, but actually their whole biochemistry is working pretty well, and you've got good cellular function. So then it's not so bad. You just change it up, because people often, the interesting thing is the gut is built, its default is to inflame. Because if you think about hundreds of years ago, I mean, if you ate a berry or a plant that was poisonous,
sure,
you were reacting immediately to inflammation to get rid of that.
Yeah.
So we still have that system. So it's going to default to inflammation when something's incorrect. So if you think about the food we choose, often we're sort of quick to have a takeaway or a couple of sugars, chocolate, we eat chips. These are inflammatory foods that just sort of default the body to inflammation too quickly. And so you get this really difficult gut that feels bloated all the time. It's discomfort, and you can't digest easily. And a lot of people feel, we get full so quickly. Some people are fine, they don't feel that, and they still eat those foods. And the changes in them is more what we term would be a kind of a leaky gut. We don't call it leaky gut anymore. It's more to do with selective permeability within that single cell lining. And that is the key to actually setting off problems with allergies and the immune system and this postnasal drip. People often go, the next morning if they've had a dinner when we've had glasses of wine. And that sort of can be fixed quite quickly. If you just don't have wine for the next few days, you can sort of stop that selective permeability. But this wine and other alcohol too is quite interesting how it has that effect on the gut. It simply changes the permeability, and it sends incorrect messages throughout the body. It sets off the cytokine of inflammation in the bloodstream, carrying everything all over the body. So that's what we have to watch. And we've got to ask ourselves, okay, so what am I feeling? So we can go back and wind back and say, okay, well, what did I have to drink? What do I have to eat? And what is my lifestyle?
Yeah.
So it's not just what you eat, it's also the lifestyle. Because if you think about the process of creating this inflammatory push, it's also stress. So it's a two-way communication between the gut and also what's going on in your brain. So if the gut is not feeling good, it's creating the wrong microbes. And those microbes, they're actually called gram-negative bacteria. And they're the ones that send this message of anxiousness and discombobulation in the brain. But also, if you're going through a stressful period of your life and stressful times, it sends a message down the vagus nerve to actually inflame. Also, it's that cortisol response that we've got to look at. And we'll often find the gut will start to behave badly, even if it's 2 or 3 months after a prolonged time of stress.
Yeah.
So stress is absolutely one of the key things. But what's quite interesting that I'm picking up quite a lot lately is because we're all very wanting to be healthy and that kind of thing. But we must remember that even over exercising has a profound impact on our gut.
Go on.
Because when you over exercise, you can inflame the body, and that's sending an inflammatory signal down to the gut.
That's interesting.
And coupled with the wrong food, so now you've got this problem. And funnily enough, we actually call it runner's gut sometimes, when it's not just nerves, it's also the fact that that little single cell lining of the gut does tend to inflame if we overdo it, if we push our bodies into that, I call it the red zone,
and
we do that exercise too much. I mean, everybody loves the dopamine feeling from a nice HIIT class, and we're doing a lot of these classes. But in actual fact, we've got to remember there's only so much of that we can handle. Some people are genetically fabulous and they can actually handle a lot more. But I always say, take it personally and see, okay, how do I feel doing these exercises? Am I doing it comfortably? Can I talk through the exercises? Or am I absolutely exhausted at the end of it? And if you repeat that over time, you might be pushing 6 months' time, you've got this big event. And what happens is you find your gut starts to not cope. But then the human body is phenomenal because it will try and heal itself.
Judith, what I'm picking up on, what I'm picking up on a lot is about the disconnect that a lot of us have with our bodies. It's almost as if they exist, in a separate space to our brains. And I get that because we live busy lives. We're, working, raising kids, and life is stressful. But what I'm hearing is that we can vastly improve how we feel and how we function by becoming more conscious, not just about what we put into our bodies, but just our bodies full stop. If you're just joining us this morning, 7:46, Weekend Breakfast with me, Sara-Jayne Makwala King, and it being a Saturday morning at this time, our wellness segment. This morning, we're exploring a topic that's really been gaining an awful lot of attention for its very profound impact on our overall well-being, gut health, and we're joined by registered consulting dietitian Judith Johnson, who is absolutely obsessed with gut health, as you can tell. She's an expert in gut health. I just wanted to take you back, Judith, just to, you mentioned eliminating and being mindful of the fact that a lot of people are having breakfast. I did just want to ask, I remember there used to be a lot of shows, this is when I lived in England years ago, and I'm sure there are still, around, you are what you eat and all these kind of shows. And in those shows, very often, sorry folks, people would be, how can I put this, investigating their stools. Do we need to do that? Do we need to do that? Say no. Say it ain't so, Judith.
Yes, you absolutely do.
How closely, Judith? Come on, JJ. How closely do we need to do this?
Well, yes, because you want to, if you've had indigestion, and it's ongoing problem, you actually need to really have a look and see if you've got any little bits of fat on the top of the bathroom stool, because that means there's malabsorption. So, you also have to check for that. If you're eating too much of the wrong food. And also, the odor is important too. So you want not a lot of heavy odor. You have to go back on your diet and say, this hasn't been good for me.
Right.
But it's the consistency that you will actually notice as you're passing a stool.
Yeah.
You'll know if it's difficult, which is absolutely incorrect. And you'll know also if you're inflaming, because your stool is often too loose and too frequent.
Okay.
And the problem with it being too loose and too frequent is you're losing the absorption ability. So, every time you eat, you have this sort of loose bile. Then we know that your system is actually inflaming, and we've got to go back and see, okay, what's causing it.
Okay, got you. I just want to go to a couple of. Oh, sorry.
Also,
yes, go on. No, go on.
Is it interesting about coffee? So we often wake up in the morning and have coffee.
Yes.
Now, coffee's a little bit of an adrenal stimulant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a stressful person
Oh dear.
and we are trying to stop that adrenal blasting of reducing, pushing our cortisol and stuff, we've got to cut back and say, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have so much coffee first thing in the morning because we've really got enough cortisol pushing through. We should delay that a little bit. Also, it's quite a stimulant on the gut. So a lot of people use it to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
And I would like to say, people, you must get your bathroom habits to want to move just with hot water or even a tea, which is not quite so much caffeine.
Okay.
It's not such a hit on the adrenals, and have something else, and then look forward to your coffee, even if it's mid-morning or maybe at breakfast. So you've actually got a bit of food. So it's not quite such a hit on the gut, because
Judith,
the
can
gut
I tell
likes
you?
a little hot water.
I having said that, and if you could see me right now, I've literally got a bucket of coffee in my hand. That said, at home, and that's because the coffee's free here. But at home, I tend not to do a coffee in the morning anymore for that exact reason. Found it too. How can I put this? Activating. I found it too activating. Yes. So I'll either do just hot water and lemon, just because it just makes me feel better, or I'll do a tea. But yes, you are right about the coffee. I started to not enjoy it. It was, again, like so much of the things that we put in our bodies, it's habit, isn't it? You just kind of get coffee on, A few questions that have come in, and a lot of them are talking about repair, which is great because that's where we're heading next in our conversation. Dietitian Judith Johnson with us this morning talking about gut health. John has called in to ask how stress affects our gut. Says he's always fatigued and we live in a very stressful country. Yes, we do. Hi, SJ, says James. In 2011, my colon burst due to diverticulitis and I had a large section of my intestine removed. Since then, I've been taking 4 sachets of Movicol to prevent constipation. Now its effect has worn off. Any suggestions as a replacement? And then Erica in Milnerton, morning, says, morning, SJ. What would your guest suggest to kickstart a gut health regime? Vegetarian for a month, probiotics, ? Thanks for an interesting conversation. You're welcome, everybody, and thanks for your questions. So let's talk a little bit about repair and getting our gut into a good state, good gut health.
Yes. Well, the first thing is to look at your lifestyle. Then the second thing is to actually look at what could be driving the inflammatory process. So you have to look at your eating. Are you choosing foods or drinks with too much sugar? Are you choosing too much coffee? Is there too much fried food? So those are the key. There's also problems with thickeners and fillers and preservatives and colorants and flavorants. I mean, the list is quite endless. And also how much food is of the wrong fatty acids. So fatty acids, if they're fried bakery goods, they also lead to problems. Too much wheat can also cause issues. And funnily enough, it's also the big protein molecule from milk, the casein, can also impact your selective permeability. So all of these things, when we try to clean the gut up, we are going to look at taking these foods away for a period of time, which varies depending on the individual. And then we start looking at what is going to make our gut better. So we look at plants, because plants are quite alkalining in the body, and we see how we can get plants intake up. And what's so interesting, if you look at ancient humans, the way we lived, we were eating thousands and thousands of calories, and a lot of them were foraging calories. So we were getting a lot more plant fibers. So nowadays, if I say to my clients, do you eat vegetables? They all go, oh, yes, I'll have a couple of veggies at dinner. I say, well, what about the rest of the day? Oh, no, don't have veggies the rest of the day. Fruit? Oh, no, I don't eat fruit anymore. It's too much sugar.
Yes,
so you see,
people are
getting
of fruit.
All these mixed messages. They're so scared of fruit. But in actual fact, it's fruit fiber that does so much good into the gut. You don't have to eat, 10 bananas. That's a little bit sweet. But sure. I'm saying, if we look at apple pectin, it's very, very repairing for the gut. So then I start to include plants, at breakfast, plants at lunch. And it's winter now, so I always look at a good vegetable soup. And if you have trouble digesting and you feel discomfort when you eat fiber, we need to start breaking that down and really looking at the types of fiber. So we start with what I call gentle fibers. We take out the sort of spiky fibers. And if you just visualize, say, an apple or a pear, or let's take a tomato or a cucumber, you've got the inside and you've got the skin. So if a gut is sensitive, it's not going to like to eat raw foods or skin of these fruits and vegetables. And so we do cooked foods and we take out the central stalks. Now that's just in the beginning for the healing phase. Then obviously we bring it all back and we try to have a lot more fiber. And
Judith, just for time, I want to. We've got a couple of minutes left, so I just want to move on to this new product that you very kindly sent me. You've been working with Stool, which is such a great name, hilarious.
Isn't it funny?
It's brilliant. What do I need to be doing with this? This isn't a paid promotion or anything, folks, but it is just a way of it is just a way of getting some fiber and into your diet. What should I be doing with Stool?
So I do love this product because it says, why be extraordinary if you can be regular?
Very good.
Very amusing.
Very good.
But actually, what this little Stool product is, it's basically a raw sort of high fiber seed mix formulated to actually start to build the right amounts of fiber. So it's a concentrated fiber source. And they've got different products coming out now. Some of them have brands, some of them have oat bran, and have now got a gluten-free product as well. So they consist of just fibers and oats and flax powder and psyllium and chia and acacia and buckwheat and all those sort of good things. Now, on the dosage, it says take 2 tablespoons. Now, that's a lot. So you need to achieve that very slowly. You start with a teaspoon. You start including that in your breakfast smoothie, in your oats, in your porridge, even if you're having, say, eggs for breakfast, you try to sort of use it. You can actually mix it with a bit of water and soak it first, but you could also mix that gel into whatever meal you're having. It mixes very easily, and it obviously takes in more water. So it's best to kind of pre-soak it, but if you're in a rush, you can just put it in a smoothie. It's liquid already, but you start with a teaspoon, gradually building up to what your individual need is for your stool to correct itself.
Coolstool.coza, folks, is where you need to go. Judith, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm being told wrap it up, because we need to pay some bills. But coolstool.coza. Judith Johnson has been our guest this morning, an expert dietitian talking about gut health.